Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with a market update, a market alert. I like to do these type of videos when there's any sort of development in between market Mondays. And so today's a Thursday, and woke up this morning to a video called A Reasonable Conversation About Pauper with Gavin Verhey by Tolarian Community College. Of course, Tolarian Community College is the #1 content producer by far. No one even comes close to Tolarian Community College as far as visibility. In fact, Tolarian Community College gets more visibility than I would say Wizards of the Coast. So whenever there's an announcement or something directed at his channel, the response is usually greater than if it even be released by the mothership. So it's a good tip for going, if you ever watch him do a Pauper deck tech or a Commander deck tech, the cards that have lower supply or are relatively unknown cards, or for whatever reason the market hasn't caught up to it yet, usually spike up in price. So even if you don't like the guy, like I don't really care for the guy myself, you should definitely still watch the channel in anticipation of a lot of market moving based upon what he releases. And today they released a conversation between him and Gavin Verhey about Pauper. And I think it's very worthwhile to go watch this video. There is some tidbits that Oubliette will get a reprint soon, that also they're looking at Pauper, that they're trying to do more Pauper tournaments and eventually try to solidify the ban list they want to do it right, is what Gavin said. So they want to make the format between MTGO and Paper more congruent, and so there's not so much confusion. So that, I think, is enough to really pull the trigger on Pauper. We'll talk about that in a second here. And we're also going to talk about Ultimate Masters again. I touched on this in my Market Monday video about Ultimate Masters. I am watching it closely because there will always be a point to buy in to the cards once they've plummeted to their lowest value. As you can see, Ultimate Masters again has dipped even some more value over the day from 1014.5 at TCG Mid to 10.12.5 on TCG Mid. If you actually look at the set EV or the box EV of Ultimate Masters, it's about 185 non-foil and about 210-ish with foil prices. And then the box topper actually gobbles up about $90, making it the EV about $300 is what you get from your average Ultimate Masters booster box if you go for market price. Of course, TCG Mid will give you a different story. It will give you around a 340-ish, but no one uses TCG Mid. TCG Mid is not where the cards are actually moving, especially with sets that are recent. So anyway, Ultimate Masters, why I'm keeping my eye on it is I still think that the Mythics are holding very stubborn. They're gobbling up the most of the value of the set, and some of the rares too are still being quite stubborn with how they are how they are staying higher than I think they should be. However, the commons and uncommons have pretty much bottomed out. And if you actually compare the commons and uncommons to other sets like Iconic Masters and Masters 25, you can see a totally different story developing about Ultimate Masters, which also gives us some insight of just how much supply there was of this set. So I think if like an Eternal Witness would have been printed in either Iconic Masters or Masters 25, it easily pushed the $5 mark. If we actually come over here and we look at some of these uncommons and commons from Iconic Masters and Masters 25, the average one's going to be not as highly playable as some of these cards. Like Utopia Sprawl 333 was able to hold a high price tag, ancient Lightning Bolt, Ancient Stirring, Seeming Spirit Guide, Street Wraith. All of these are on the $2.50 mark, which I think if they were in the Ultimate Masters, they'd be more on at least the $2 for the $3 ones, and I would say between $1, because Slippery Bogle seems about the same amount of playability as something like Ash Barrens, for example, or the Myriad Landscape. Both of these have a lot of Commander playability, but if you actually see cards like Buried Alive in Ultimate Masters, let's go back here to the Ultimate Masters. Buried Alive's all the way down to 94 cents, and you can actually find these 50 cents all over the place, whereas the market price is actually a little more closer to TCG Mid with the Masters 25. So you can see the supply is just a lot higher that has already been injected into the market with the Ultimate Masters. The vast majority of these, I think, were just gobbled up, opened, and the people that wanted to box open these could easily make a profit with the box toppers. In fact, you could probably break even and keep the box topper as the kind of loot for opening. I know a lot of mass box openers, that's exactly what they do. They fire sell everything and keep the foils or keep the high-end mythics as kind of the profit margins, and then sell those later on when they recover. And that's a good strategy if you do decide to become a mass box opener, because most of the time cards will recover in a reprint set. So comparing the sets here, we can actually look at Iconic Masters too with the uncommons. And you can see that Mishra's Bobble at 428, Tholarian Dynamo. They both are very similar to Eternal Witness as far as how much they see play. But even cards like Lightning Helix that I think would have got crushed if it was in Masters 25 or Ultimate Masters, and Swords of Plowshare really would have been a quarter card if it was in Ultimate Masters, have been able to stay at these higher marks. If we go over to Common, it even paints like another picture with a lot of cards still even holding 25 cents. There's no way to have any value if they're in Ultimate Masters. So same thing with Common. So it's leading me to believe that these cards have definitely hit their lows, and the time is probably now to start picking these cards up. So I've been picking up high numbers at 5 cents a piece over at the Rogue Market channel. I'm going to do a kind of a recap video of this. We're going to give the cards from Pauper from Ultimate Masters that I'm currently picking up. And you'd be surprised at the price point I've been able to get in on a bunch of these cards, as there are some goodies here, not really in the common slot, but in the uncommon slot, where cards like Chainer's Edicts, cards like the Slippery Bogle, really, really heavily played in multiple formats. The same thing can be said about Buried Alive. It's one of the most played cards in Commander. And we even have cards like the Golgari Thug, which is played as of 3 of to 4 of in one of the most popular decks in Modern, has gone all the way down to $1. And I've paid 25 cents and 50 cents for Golgari Thugs from vendors, not from actual people. We're talking like Card Kingdom and whatnot. I've had these for extremely low. So the supply is quite high of these, and I think that this is what's hit the brunt of the depreciation from Ultimate Masters has been the uncommon and common slot, which is typical, but sometimes a bunch of these commons and uncommons, they do hit these more stubborn, higher price tags. I think it took a long time for Mishra's Bauble, for example, from Iconic Masters, to go down to the price that we see today. But this is typical what happens with these master sets. But we can actually look at like Tholarian Dynamo. I believe this is one that's already doubled in value since it was released. So it went down to 3, but it's already back up to 4. So these can recover. And these are the type of cards I like to invest in. I know that I'm more of the scraping the barrel type of person. I think that if you can find buy listers, there are plenty of times when vendors run out of cards like Tholarian Dynamo, and they actually pay a very, very slim margins between the market price and the buy list. This happens with uncommons and commons. It's rare. Usually you see those thin margins in mythics or high demand rares, but there will be times when there will be some great opportunities to sell with these, and these are a lot more likely to double up and triple up than rares and mythics that people have in mind. Mythics, of course, high-end mythics have the exact opposite effect of what we have with commons and uncommons. They have that price memory really sticky, and it's hard for them to move down. You can look at Tarmogoyf. I still expect Tarmogoyf to continue to go down what it's been doing since it was first reprinted in the first Modern Masters. It's just been on a downward spiral since then, but people just have that price memory of the expensive Tarmogoyfs, and are less willing to sell them, thinking there will be a price spike at some point in time. So this is why I like these type of cards, and I'm a huge advocate of like Pauper and Commander, and I think there's a lot more popularity in those formats than the competitive Legacy and Modern players will give credit to. And if you actually look at the MTG Finance and even a lot of the vendors, their minds are still in the day where if it wasn't in Modern or Legacy or currently played in Standard, that had no value. Well, I think the Magic over the course of the last, I would say 3, 4, 5 years has really shifted to more of the dominant format by far is probably Commander, and then I'd say Modern would be number 2. So the market still is lagging behind of that sort of demand. There have been some vendors like Card Kingdom that have really jumped on that. If you look at Card Kingdom's comparison between Commander cards and Modern/Legacy cards, their Commander cards are usually sold at a higher price tag, and their Legacy Modern staples are usually more of the budget. Card Kingdom is actually a pretty decent place to buy. You'd be very surprised with like a bunch of these Modern staples, and that's where I've been targeting with some of my buyouts for Card Kingdom. You can only buy 20 at a time. One thing that I have done with Card Kingdom is I've had store credit with them for a long time because I did end up trading in my Arclight Phoenixes for Card Kingdom 30% buy list price. So I had tons and tons of money in Card Kingdom, and then I've been filling out carts like this, as you can see on the right hand, of just undervalued Ultimate Masters cards. So this is what I got in my cart right now. Got the Slippery Bogles at 40 cents. I think that's a bargain of a bargain. The Golgari Thug at 40 cents. The Conflagrate at 25 cents. The Circular Logic at 25 cents. Buried Alive at 50 cents. And Thraben Inspector, believe it or not, this is just in here because I think I'm out of stock at my store and I want to build some more Pauper decks. So they're actually the cheapest right now. This is cheaper than TCG Low. The best cart that I can find had something like $1.99 shipping, and there was only 10 of them available. And then the next one jumps up to about 40 cents, just like the Card Kingdom. So utilize the vendors when you can. Sometimes Card Kingdom has a lot of shifts. I think they use an algorithm with their pricing. So when people aren't buying cards, it lowers the value of the card. And that's when you really want to get in on these. It's just a card that's been cold for a while, can really bottom out. And you can see this with like the Golgari Thug. So don't be afraid to utilize vendors. There's a lot of times where, for example, here's one that I bought out of Card Kingdom. I used to buy these from Card Kingdom, basically make carts of 20. I bought these for $0.25 for the longest time with the Birchlore Rangers. And now let's see if we can see what I could do if I were to sell back my Birchlore Ranger. So I could actually sell it back for credit for 35 cents. So, not the greatest little flip there, but if this goes up a little bit more for the Birchlore Rangers, up to like 50 cents, that's a double up right there from the same vendor. And I only had to pay shipping one way. I mean, it's free shipping from places like Card Kingdom. So buy lists are something you absolutely want to perfect if you are in the MG finance sort of racket. So other things too, you want to find a player group that plays a particular format you are investing in. Really start being friendly with your Commander players, your Pauper players, your Modern players, and be their market. A lot of people live in areas where the local game store is just not good at what they do. My experience with a lot of LGSs is they are Magic the Gathering reluctant. I don't know about you, but this has been my experience with the vast majority of local game stores. They're a board game store first. A lot of them, the owners at least, really wanted like a board game setting, or D&D or whatever their hobby was, open a game store, and they reluctantly carry Magic because it's the breadwinner. And so a lot of them aren't very good at what they do. I remember the game store that I frequented refused to carry more than 4 of any copy. And it was like, why? That's the best thing about being at LGS is being the market, being able to buy it at extremely low prices. At our game store, what we do is we give like 20% in cash if people want to sell us their card, or 50% in store credit. And if you're into store credit, then you're kind of double dipping, because you're selling at MSRP, getting the goods at less than MSRP, of course, usually around 40 to 50%, and then getting trade-ins at 50 cents or 50%. So you're actually really paying between 25 and 30% of the card value. And that's one of the more lucrative aspects of running a game store. However, a lot of game stores, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of knowledge to be able to run those, and they just don't do it. And so if there isn't a game store in your area that is being the singles market, really being good at what they do, you can pick up that slack for them. Now, a lot of game stores, of course, you can't sell in their location. That's a big no-no. You don't want to be offering for cash. It's probably illegal, if not, and it's incredibly disrespectful that they're paying the overhead for you to do your business. But a lot of local game stores, of course, allow you to trade, and that's where I think that it's very lucrative to pick up cards in the Pauper and Commander formats and then just rinse and repeat with different players. I've told the story about how at the game store that I used to frequent, which is now closed now, it was called Epic Puzzles and Games in Salt Lake City. We had a high-end foils guy named Rex. He was the big high-end foils. Shout out to Rex if he still exists. So he would always pay me premium if I could find high-end foils. So like foil Snapcaster Mages, for example. And then we had a really vibrant Commander scene that would pay higher for Commander staples. And then we also had a Standard and a Modern that sometimes didn't even overlap. So I would just sit there on a good trade night waiting for tournaments and show up an hour early and leave an hour later, especially an hour early before a tournament happened. People were looking for to fulfill their play sets, especially uncommon play sets, and the store wouldn't even have any, and I'd be the guy, and I'd say, well, I don't need your card, you have to trade, give me 115% value of my card, and then we'd make a trade. And it just I've told the story before. My whole collection was stolen, about $8,000 worth of cards, and was able to go from basically the Avacyn Restored pre-release worth of value. And I think by the time I moved from Salt Lake, my collection was back in the thousands of dollars, and that wasn't with spending any money outside of just tournament entries. I wasn't buying booster boxes to crack. I wasn't buying singles. I was just trading what I had. And if you're savvy with that, there's some money to be had. And some of this is by scraping the bottom of the barrel. Once again, especially if you are in a location that the game store just isn't doing a good enough job meeting the demands of the player base. So anyway, got off on a little bit of a tangent here with this particular video series. So this is the kind of the question here. I have to reiterate it. I'm going to be more positive, okay? I get the message. Sometimes when I'm negative, it just has a negative effect on people watching. I was a little bit rattled by a lot of the comments lately, and then I just realized that these people are just people on the internet. I mean, there's a good way to kind of de-escalate kind of the angst that you get from negative comments is just by looking at your average person that does negative comments and then realizing, why do I care what they think anyway? If they're going to misrepresent my positions, if they're going to misrepresent what I'm saying, who cares? Just, move on. So Ultimate Masters, again, it's not a bad set. It's a very, very, very packed full of good stuff, even this uncommon and common slot. The thing that always worried me with Ultimate Masters, and it did come true, is that the supply was just way too high to hold that kind of Modern Masters 1 mentality where everything was just going to go up after release, or the fact it could hold its $600 box EV, which it is even close to that now. Like I said, it's down to $185 without foils, about $215, $220 with foils, and the Ultimate Box Topper adds about $80 worth of value to it. So if you get these MSRP, which they're going at right now, you will be expecting a loss if you were to crack an Ultimate Masters booster box. However, this is going to sometimes change, and we can go over here and look at Masters 25 as an example. It hit its low at 522. It's already back up to 548, and we can even go over to the Iconic Masters, and you can see this is also starting to trend up. So it hit its low at 500 and is now up to about 526, and it's had a little bit of price fluctuation here, but it does seem like it's starting to trend up. We can go back to basically any one of these particular sets and they do a very similar thing. So, we see a bottom out and it stays stagnant for a few months. So this one came out in April. It stayed stagnant to about October, November-ish, December-ish, and then now it started to go up. It got hit some value here from Ultimate Masters reprinting a bunch of its high-value cards, but it's starting to go back up again even after Ultimate Masters. And if we even click back at something more relevant like the Eternal Masters, you can see a very similar trajectory. The only thing that I caution and warn about Ultimate Masters, I think this is going to take a little bit longer than like Eternal Masters did to start appreciating back in value, because of just the supply of Ultimate Masters is, in my opinion, as high as Iconic Masters and Masters 25, and it hit the market a lot quicker than the other sets did. So we still have a lot of lagging behind Iconic Masters and Masters 25 that will eventually start to get into the system, and so that's going to cause it to start going up a little bit quicker. But then when it actually becomes worth it for people who crack boxes, it'll probably have a nice little stabilizing effect on the price spikes when they do begin to go up. So just be cautionary about Ultimate Masters. I get it. If you have sealed Ultimate Masters boxes, yeah, if you got for way under MSRP, you can already sell now at MSRP. And like, for example, if you were part of my Patreon where we were able to give, I sent off 100 booster boxes of Ultimate Masters to patrons for, I believe, what was it, $205 was the price? So like if they kept them sealed and could sell them for $335, they made a pretty good chunk of change being a patron right there. And if they sit on it, in my opinion, for 6 months, it's gonna be worth $400, and maybe in a year it'll be worth $500. And that's just the nature of these master sets. They all tend to appreciate very well if you can keep them sealed. However, me personally, I don't like that sort of avenue, because I think that you can do a better job picking a specific card. So for example, if you would have invested in Eternal Masters and had sealed Eternal Masters booster box, you're probably not as well off if you just would have invested in Mana Crypts. And in my opinion, singles are a lot easier. They're a lot more liquid than finding a person to buy at the price you want, plus the shipping, plus all the hassle you have with sealed booster boxes. A lot easier to make Mana Crypts more of a liquid asset. So anyway, that's kind of my little update of this market. Not a lot of information with it, but we're going to look at Pauper too. So like I said, this is the time to really start thinking about investing again in Pauper. We saw last time around in Rivals of Ixalan, Pauper took off. If we go over here to the Pauper metagame, it really looks like Kadatha Boros and Red White Weenies have taken off because of the last tournament. You can see a lot of price spikes at the time period of Rivals of Ixalan. So this is when Pauper took off last time, and it went all the way to about Dominaria. So Prismatic Strands went from 50 cents all the way up to $3, and you can see this price trajectory, because everyone was just very unreasonable with how quick. Like, if you were to actually follow this trajectory, this is probably more relevant to where it should be today. So so I think Prismatic Strands might be where it should be if you were just going to follow the true demand of this card. And this is a good way to figure out where prices, whenever there's a big price spike, this is when you should sell. And then you can always rely on this going back down, and then you should buy back in. Personally, you can thank me for respiking the price value of Prismatic Strand from Card Kingdom. I was buying these at 79 cents from Card Kingdom. Let's see what they're going at for right now. As there was a time period where Card Kingdom just blew out all of their Pauper for really cheap, and I think it's because they increased their buy list so high. So this is buy list. Let's get out of buy list here. So they're actually buying Prismatic Strands for $1 credit, $1.04, but again, I think they work on like an algorithm base, so they increased their buy list for a lot of Pauper cards because people like Tolarian Community College were the ones that were pushing Pauper. And of course, he's got the Card Kingdom sponsorship, so then people were clicking on its link and then come here and buying them. And so that shot up the value of not only how much they're selling them for, but also their buy list. And I think some people just completely unloaded to Card Kingdom. And the way their algorithm, which I'm assuming how it works, is the more that they buy, so they get 20 cards of Prismatic Strands, then they decrease their buy list. So then they'll say, okay, we're paying $2, now we're going to pay $1.85. Then 20 more come in. Okay, we're going to pay $1.55. Okay, 20 more come in. Okay, we're going to pay $1.45. Okay, and then that just happens until they hit their cap of what they want, and then they offer very, very little for their buy list, and then they're not selling them because the Pauper craze turned off, and then, oh, it's been a week since we sold a card, reduced by 5%. Oh, it's been another week since we sold a card, reduced by another 5%, and pretty soon these cards like kind of bottom out. So you can kind of exploit that if there's any sort of vendors that use algorithm-based pricing. And that's the thing, though. Like the operation of something like Card Kingdom, there's no way that they could. It probably wouldn't be cost-effective to hire a user, just a person, to really manage the market. And they might have someone that really looks at Modern or some of the formats that have more of a lucrative value than Pauper, and to make sure that they're, I know they do it with Commander because they're really ahead of the curve with price spikes in Commander. Like Cyclonic Rift, they're way far ahead. Sidisi, Undead Vizier, they're way far ahead. But Pauper, they just seems to be like they're lacking, and they've brought it back over to algorithm based pricing. And it was able to exploit on this. We can actually, let's see here. Hopefully it doesn't give you private information here. Let's go to my account here. You can see some of the things that I've been able to buy from Card Kingdom recently and be able to get out on. So Chittering Rats for 25 cents a piece. Tecatli Honor Guard, that was a spec again. The Thorn of the Black Rose, 25 cents a piece. Like, these are cards that have real world value of a lot higher, and was able to find them due to just Card Kingdom becoming low with these cards. So Chittering Rats are currently going for about 80 cents a piece. I think when I bought them, they're even a little higher. And I don't know why. Goldfish must have dropped Card Kingdom, because I don't see Card Kingdom showing up for about the past week on MTG Goldfish. We'll have to ask them why is that the thing. But the market price is still about 63 cents. So getting them in a quarter, I think, is pretty good. And this is also 4 of in 2 different decks in Pauper that I think get a lot better if like Gush gets banned. If Gush gets banned, I really like Mono Black and Black Red Discard. I think it matches up incredibly well against Kadatha Boros, for example. So anyway, kind of all over the place with this video, but that's kind of been my strategy with vendors like Card Kingdom. I've always liked Card Kingdom. Like, I hate to say this because sometimes they're at the forefront of the let's make Magic political, and as I'm in Utah, I mean, of course my politics aren't going to line perfectly well with the West Coast, and I do find it a little bit annoying, if not, even further levels than that, when places like Card Kingdom make these big stances and post the Women in Magic articles that I just find absolutely ludicrous, and I don't really like to support those entities. But at the same time, money talks. Your wallet's always going to be the thing you're most loyal to, and Card Kingdom by far has the best buy list, and when you actually turn it into credit, it's better than even utilizing CardSphere, in my opinion. If you do the buy list route, than sending cards. I rarely send cards on CardSphere because I think the market pays too little on CardSphere for cards comparatively to buy list if you get the 30% buy list increase. So I've had a lot of credit here on Card Kingdom, and that's why I've been slowly picking off cards like Deathblade Elites, Thorn of the Black Rose, the Palace Sentinels, even though a lot of people are calling for these 2 to be banned, and in anticipation that then they'll go back up, and then we can do the whole Birchlore Ranger. Let's see if I can find where I bought the Birchlore's Ranger. So you can see Prismatic Strands I bought for $1.49 there. I bought them back in the day for even less. Tireless Tribe for 25 cents. Capital Punishment and Shared Trauma was out of them in stock at my store. And I think it was a pretty decent spec for the Haunt of the Hightower. Thought that card was going to take off. It did not. But Inside Out, same thing. Been kind of picking up those type of cards. And let's see if we can find some of these other. Let's look at some old orders with what I purchased from Card Kingdom. We have the Fine Finale at 35 cents, Ritual Soot at $1. Those were standard specs. Same thing, the Night of Grace. All these did spike up, by the way. Same thing with that one, spiked up a ton. That one did not. Did not call that one correctly. We have, this is just buying out rares when they hit their low. Yeah, Champion of Wits for 35 cents. Don't know if that was a smart buy or not. These are cards I think we needed in our store to fill up our inventory. And hey, they turned it into Modern Masters booster boxes. That's where my Arclight Phoenixes went, by the way. Went from getting the 30% in-store credit and getting this at $150 a booster box for Masters 25. All right, let's see if we can find some other ones here. Is there older packages, or did I do a different account when I bought the Birch Lord? Oh, there we go. Birch Lord 40 cents a piece is what I paid for them here. And 31 for these exceptional one. And of course, they've gone up since then. And some of these other cards, Prism Actions for 99 cents here. So I think I have some older ones. Is there a page 2? Huh, there must be a page 2 because I've been using these for longer than October. But anyway, you kind of get the gist of it, of how you can kind of juggle the buy list and sell list. And it's been pain-free with Card Kingdom. I know some people have had horror stories with Card Kingdom. However, when I sent off, hundreds of dollars, that was $1,000 package with the Arclight Phoenixes, not a problem. And I know Zach uses it a lot. And has no problems with it either. Whereas we have used some other ones like Cool Stuff that have been a headache to use. And TCG Player, I highly suggest you do not use TCG Player's buy list. They are absolutely they're scammers at this point. Huge horror story I have with TCG Player's buy list is we never list anything on TCG Player for near mint just because it's the headache of people saying this isn't near mint, it's lightly played, because there's a little tiny whatever in there. So we sell everything at lightly played. So when we buy list stuff to Card Kingdom or use a direct program, we use lightly played as well. And Card Kingdom rejected a ton of our cards. I believe they were Sulphur Falls. They were pristine. They were absolutely pristine. They weren't, not only were they not near mint, they weren't lightly played by, they were near mint, they weren't not lightly played by any stretch of the imagination. And TCG Player sent them back, and the only thing we can think of is they didn't want to pay the price that they originally wanted to pay, because the market must have leveled off and the price was going down. And so I'm done with TCG Player for that. They are absolutely scammers at this point, so do not use them. Anyway, that's kind of my video. Been very kind of rambly, but I hope this gives you kind of the insight of my daily routine of just going through. The first thing I do on Goldfish, usually I use MT price and MT stocks occasionally, but Goldfish just still has the data that is the most relevant, the easiest to come over here and check out buy list prices and trends, and it'll have deck lists right here that actually look through it. You can look through. Is my daily routine just come here to the movers and shakers, look at kind of the formats, go through Modern, Pauper, and whatnot, look for any sort of trends. Good thing to show if Pauper is taking off is if the daily is higher than the losers, and this is still more modern cards that are moving in both directions with Pauper. But I do expect that to be happening pretty soon. And I'll put together a list of like cards, the most played cards. We've been putting together Pauper lists, like Pauper deck lists that we play or we build. So I've got a $20 mono black control, and then a $25 blitz red, a $25 white heroic, a $50 delver, and a $25 stompy that we sell for new players. Because that's if people can't afford $25 to get into format, then where's the line of where people can afford to play something when you're paying hundreds of dollars for standard or thousands of dollars for modern? And that's kind of the cheapest I can get competitive decks down to in Pauper. But you start to run out of particular cards like Ponders, Preordains, Chainer's Edict's one you really, really start to run out of when you're building a lot of decks. Mutagenic Gross, that one's huge. Gut Shots, Mutagenic Gross, those are ones that if Pauper does start to take off, those are the cards that are going to move the quickest. Prismatic Strand's another one. Anyway, kind of a long, rambly video, but I hope this is helpful. We'll have a video of the top 10 cards that I'm investing in from Ultimate Masters over at my Rogue Market channel, so go and check that out. It'll be more focused and won't be so rambly. Anyway, this has been Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.